Hi guys, Wheelie here, and I am so excited to be sharing this infinity scarf with you because you are not going to sew the ends together. You're going to do it all with crochet, but it's going to be the closest thing to invisible. So not only does this infinity scarf have like a ridiculously large number of flowers, check it out, it's so cute. It's also going to mean you won't need to pick up your needle until it is time to weave in your tails. What's not to love?
Let's have a closer look before we start. This is a mile a minute pattern and the scarf is made by joining 3 strips of a flower design. The first 2 strips are in colour 1 and the third is in colour 2. We start by crocheting 1 complete strip of the design, then we make one side of the next strip and begin to join it to the first strip at the same time as we make the other side of it. It sounds complicated, but it's not. It's very like using a join-as-you-go method to connect granny squares for a blanket. The third strip is worked in the same way as the second. Once all of the strips are joined, we put a single crochet border along one side, which brings in the first colour again to finish the scarf off nicely. This is an infinity scarf, but it isn't made by seaming the ends of a conventional scarf. Instead, each of these strips is actually a circle. From the front, you can't tell that you're looking at the join, but if I turn it over, you can see it. This is the spot here. When I first filmed this bit, I was moving the scarf around and then I couldn't find the join to show you, which I think is a good sign that this is an inconspicuous join. In terms of length, you can make the scarf the length you prefer. Mine is the length I like for a spring scarf. It hangs quite long and loose, but it's not long enough for me to wrap. You might prefer to make yours a bit shorter so it sits closer to your neck, or you might want to make it long enough to wrap. I've put info in the description box to help you work out how much yarn you'll need to make your scarf. Speaking of yarn, I've used 2 shades of pink, a pretty fuchsia for my colour 1, which is used for 2 strips and the border, and a lighter pink for my colour 2, which is just 1 strip. I'm using 8 ply yarn. You can use a heavier yarn if you'd like a warmer scarf, but I like 8 ply. It's affordable and it's not very cold where I live. You'll need a crochet hook that matches your yarn choice. I'm using a 4.5mm hook. The yarn label recommends a 4mm hook, but I wanted a softer drape. I recommend you think about the texture of your yarn when you pick your hook, as a yarn that isn't particularly soft, crocheted with a small hook, won't feel very nice against your skin. You'll also need a pair of scissors for snipping and a darning needle for weaving in your tails. So grab your hook and your colour 1 yarn and we'll start by popping a slip knot on the hook. We're going to make the first strip. Now I'm going to use this light pink yarn for the video, even though the light pink is my colour 2. While my darker pink is pretty, the stitches don't show as well, but I will clearly say which colour you need to use and I'll write it in the pattern instructions on the screen too. Begin by chaining 2 and we're going to work a double crochet into the second chain from the hook, which is the chain that has the slip knot at the bottom of it. So we'll skip this first one and work into the second chain from the hook. Yarn over and insert your hook, catching just 1 loop of the chain. So you've got 2 loops and the chain on your hook. Yarn over and pull through. You now have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 of them. You've got 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through 2. And that combination of stitches, a chain 2 and a double crochet, is the center of our first flower. Now chain 2 and we'll make our first petal. So yarn over and insert your hook into the top of the 2 stitches below, just like that, catching 2 loops. Now yarn over and pull through the stitches. You now have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 and stop. You now have a chain 2 and an unfinished double crochet on your hook, and we're going to make another 2 unfinished double crochets. So yarn over and insert your hook into the same spot, catching 2 loops of those 2 stitches. So you now have the 2 stitches and 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the stitches. You've got 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 of them. And don't finish that double crochet. Yarn over again and go back into the same spot. And you have 4 loops and the stitches on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the stitches. You now have 5 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. And you now have a chain 2 and 3 unfinished double crochets on your hook. And you're going to yarn over and finish all of those at once. We're going to alternate between those two combinations of stitches, which I will call flower centers and petals, while we work up a long enough strand of this to form the basis of our scarf. I'll do a couple more of each with you though. So chain 2 and we'll work a flower center. Yarn over and insert your hook, and you need to catch the top of all 4 of the stitches below, so you have 2 loops and the 4 stitches on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the stitches. You've got 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. And that's a flower center. And you'll notice that this starts to twist around as you work more clusters, and that's okay, that's normal. So chain 2 and we'll work a petal. Yarn over and insert your hook into the 2 stitches below and work your first unfinished double crochet. And now work 2 more unfinished double crochets. Now I have a chain 2 and 3 unfinished double crochets, and I'm going to yarn over and finish them all together. And that's a petal. Now we need a flower center. So chain 2 and double crochet. And you need to go into the top of all 4 of the stitches below, like that. And after the flower center, we work another petal. So chain 2 and work 3 unfinished double crochets, which you then finish together to complete the petal. And this stitch can also be called a double crochet 3 together. There we go, yarn over and pull through all of them. So now hopefully you understand the pattern. You'll need to continue crocheting, alternating between the flower centers and the petals. We started this length of crochet with a flower center, and it's important that we finish with a flower petal, and then we'll join the 2 ends together to make a circle. For my scarf, I made 58 clusters. That's 29 centers and 29 petals, and it measured about 1 meter or 39 inches. However, it's not quite as simple as just working this until you've got the length you want your finished scarf to be, as when we work the rest of the petals into our flower centers, the gorgeous puffy little petals will make our flower centers less long and more wide, and that will decrease the length. My finished scarf is a circle that measures roughly 92 centimeters or 36 inches. Exactly how much your length will reduce depends on your style of stitching, your hook size and your yarn. I'd estimate that it will be roughly 8% shorter than the length you build up now. That might not sound like a lot, but when I was playing around with this pattern in the winter, I made myself a version that was much shorter, and I wanted it to sit closer to my neck to just keep me warm, but instead I couldn't get it over my head. So do leave yourself a little bit of extra leeway. And I'll leave you to crochet now. You can unpause when you're ready to join the ends together and start adding lots of petals to these flowers. It's time to join this together. So double check that you started with a flower center and that you stuck to the pattern of alternating between petal and center, petal, center, petal, center, all the way along, and that you've ended with a petal. Lay it out so the correct side is up the whole way around. As I mentioned, and I'm sure you noticed, these have a tendency to twist, so make sure it's not twisted. We're going to slip stitch it to connect the ends. We're going to connect this end to this end. And to do that, we're going to insert our hook in here between the chain 2 and the double crochet. Make sure that you don't put your hook here or into one of the chains. I like to actually open it up so I can see what I'm doing. So here is my chain 2 under my thumb, and that is my double crochet. So my hook goes here between them. And my tail can sometimes get in the way, so I'm just popping it out of the way. And then I can slip stitch. And it's joined together. Now we can work our first petal for this side of the strip. And we work our first petal in the same way that we worked all of the petals down here. So we start by chaining 2, and we work a cluster of 3 unfinished double crochets, and we work them into the same spot that we just slip stitched. which is the center of our first flower. That's the 3 unfinished double crochets in the chain 2, so yarn over and finish them. And now chain 3, and our next petal and the rest of the petals on this side of the strip are clusters of 4 unfinished double crochets finished together. So yarn over and insert into the same place again, the center of the flower, and work your 4 unfinished double crochets. That's 2. That's 3. That's 4. Now yarn over and finish them all together. And this first flower, it now has a petal, a chain 3 and a petal all coming from the center of it. Now we move over to the center of the next flower. So yarn over and find the center. It's the space between the chain 2 and the double crochet. So insert your hook there and work a petal. Remember that a petal is 4 unfinished double crochets that we finish together. That's 4, so yarn over and finish them together. And now we chain 3 and work a second petal into this same space, the center of the flower. And that's how we're going to work our way along this side of the strip. We'll work a petal, a chain 3 and a second petal into the center of each of the flowers. That's my 4 unfinished double crochets, so I yarn over and finish the petal. And to move over to the next flower, you don't chain, you just yarn over and work a petal into the center of it. So I'll get you to pause here and work your way along, putting a petal, a chain 3 and a second petal into each flower center, and the flower center is the space between the double crochet and the chain 2. And when you get back to where we slip stitch, I'll show you how we finish off this side and get over to the other side of the strip. I've worked my way along one side and now it's time to join these flowers together. We're going to do that by chaining 1 and then slip stitching. We're not going to slip stitch to the top of the first cluster of double crochets. We're going to slip stitch just here. And this is the first chain of the chain 3 that connects the first petal we worked on this side to the petal next to it. And now we chain 3. We're going to slip stitch to this flower here, but first turn your work so we can see it from the back. And that chain of 3 brings us up to the right height to slip stitch into this flower center. Now we turn our work again. We take this side and turn it over. We're looking at our work from the correct side again, and we work our first petal for this side by chaining 2 and working 3 unfinished double crochets into this flower center. That's my 3 unfinished double crochets and my chain 2. So yarn over and finish them all at once, and that's the first petal for this side done. We'll work the final petal for this flower right at the end. For now, we're going to move into the center of the next flower. From here, we're back to working clusters of 4 unfinished double crochets all finished together to be our petals, and the pattern from here is exactly the same as the pattern you just followed for the other side. So I'll leave you to work your way along, finishing off the flowers by putting a petal, chain 3 and a second petal into each. Then unpause the video so we can work the final petal in this strip together. I've pretty much finished the second side. I just have this last petal to work. It's the one in the first flower that we left for last. It's the same double crochet 4 together cluster that we've been working all along this strip. And now that's done, chain 3, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of the first cluster. So this is the chain 1, that's the chain 2, and this is the top of our petal. Insert your hook catching 2 loops and slip stitch. And you can bring in the scissors now and snip this. This strip is done. You can weave in your ends and we'll get started on the second strip. I'll get you to go back and again in colour 1 make the first half of another strip following the same pattern. Get to the point where you finish the first side, chained 3 and slip stitched into the centre of the flower so you can start working the second side, and then come back here so I can show you how we connect the strips as we work that second side. Use the timestamps in the description box to help you navigate around the pattern. The second and third strips of your scarf are worked in the same way, except that you crochet the third strip in your colour 2. I've actually joined my first 2 strips, so this is my third strip, half finished. The first petal of the joining side is worked in the same way as the first petal of the other side. Just chain 2 and work a double crochet 3 together. We won't begin joining the strips until we're between the 2 petals of the next flower. That's my first petal, and now work your first petal of the second flower in the usual way with a double crochet 4 together, or 4 unfinished double crochets finished together. Instead of chaining 3, chain 1 and bring in the strip or strips that you're connecting to. As this is my third strip, I'm joining it to these 2 strips in my colour 1. The strips are correct side upwards, the same as the one I'm working on, and you connect to any section of it. Just locate a chain 3 space between any 2 petals. And now I insert my hook into the chain 3 space, down into it, and yarn over and slip stitch and chain 1 and make the second petal in this flower with a double crochet 4 together. I know it can look a little fiddly, but once you get used to holding the strips that you're connecting and working the downward slip stitch, it isn't complicated. Now we work the first petal in the next flower, just as normal with 4 unfinished double crochets that we finished together. Then chain 1 and locate the chain 3 space in the flower opposite. There. Insert your hook down into that chain 3 space and slip stitch. Chain 1 and work the second petal for this flower with a double crochet 4 together. I'll show you this one more time and then hopefully you'll feel confident. So that's the second petal finished, and we'll move into the next flower. Yarn over and insert your hook and work your 4 unfinished double crochets. Yarn over and finish them all at once, and chain 1 and locate the chain 3 space on the flower opposite. Insert your hook down into that space, yarn over and slip stitch, and chain 1 and work your second petal with a double crochet 4 together. Can you see that the chain 1, slip stitch and chain 1 is standing in for the chain 3 that's normally between the petals on the other side of the strip? So now that's done, we can move on to the next flower. So I'll leave you to continue working this side of the strip at the same time as you connect it to the other strips. you work a petal, a chain one, a slip stitch, a chain one and a petal. Unpause when you get back to the beginning of the side and I'll show you how we finish off the strip. I have the last petal in this first flower left to go. So work the petal as you normally would with the double crochet 4 together or 4 unfinished double crochets finished together. Then chain 1 and we're going to slip stitch into this chain 3 space here. So it does get a little bit fiddly as you get near the end as there's not much room to work with, but it's not too bad. Now chain 1 and we're going to slip stitch to the top of the first petal just here. Insert your hook, catching 2 loops, yarn over, pull through, and we're all joined together. Now I'm finished making and joining strips, but if this is your first watch, you'll need to make one more strip, your third strip, using colour 2. You'll crochet half of the third strip separately and then work up the other half of it as you join it onto these. But I've finished making strips, so I'm going to snip this and I'm going to weave in my tails before I go any further. So I'll do that and I'll pop back in just a moment to show you how to put the finishing touches on your scarf. I'm going to finish the scarf off with a border of single crochet along the last strip. Work the border with colour 1. The third strip is made with colour 2, so the border gives a bit of contrast and it gives a slightly ruffled look, which I like. It's an optional extra. If I make this scarf in just one colour or using a variegated yarn, I don't always put the border on. However, since I always use them, I'll quickly show you how to work a standing single crochet to start the border. If you're not familiar with standing stitches, they're a way to start a new row using a new piece of yarn without having to begin with a chain, either to get you up to height or to stand in for your first stitch. There are standing versions of most stitches and I love all of them. I have a playlist with more in-depth instructions on how to work a range of standing stitches. The link is on the screen and it's also in the description box. So if this dark yarn makes it difficult for you to follow what I'm doing, or if you want to learn some more complicated standing stitches, you might like to use those videos. If you'd rather connect your yarn in whatever way you usually do that. Otherwise, put a slip knot on your hook and we're going to start the border in the top of any of the petals, but it's not really crucial where you start. You'll see once I get going that you could really start your border off wherever you want to. So with the slip knot on your hook, insert your hook into the top of the stitch as you normally would. Now yarn over and pull up a loop. And you have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. And that is a standing single crochet. It's as easy as that. You still have to weave the tail in at the end, the same as you would with any tail, but you now have a starting single crochet that looks like the other single crochets and even has a proper little V on the top of the stitch. It does have a little slip knot on it, but once you weave in your tails, you don't notice that. But let's stop admiring that stitch and get on with the border. You need to put 1 single crochet into each stitch. So 1 here, and 1 here. And when you get to the chain 3 space, work 3 single crochets, which gives a slightly ruffled look. If you don't like that ruffled look, you could work 2 single crochets in the chain 3 spaces instead. So I'll leave you to work the border, but I'll come back right at the end to show you how to finish off. I use an invisible join rather than a slip stitch, and you might want to try that technique out if you're not familiar with it, as it does give a very neat finish. I'll see you in a moment. I've worked all my stitches for the border. You could slip stitch to the top of the first single crochet to finish. You can slip stitch to standing stitches the same as to a normal stitch, but I'm going to use an invisible join, so I've snipped my yarn and I'm going to slide out my hook. And sorry about that jump, I knocked the camera. I'm going to thread my needle. So when you slip stitch, you slightly change the stitch you join to. You'll have noticed that it looks a bit funny afterward. An invisible join avoids that by instead adding a second top to the stitch that you would usually slip stitch to. So take note of where the yarn is coming from out of that single crochet we just worked, And in this case, we're going to be replacing the top of the standing single crochet there. But we're not going to insert our needle into that stitch. We will insert it into the stitch just to the left of that, going under both loops of the top and pulling the needle through. Now insert your needle into the top of the last single crochet you made and take the needle out into the back of the stitch and pull the yarn through. And have a look. Isn't that neat? I'll just weave my tails in now and then I'll be done. I'll snip these off nice and close. So now we can admire the finished scarf. I really love this one. I love the way the joins look when you stretch it out like this. And I adore all these little flowers squished up together. It's just unapologetically pretty and flowery, and it makes me think of spring. If you enjoyed the video, give me a like, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.